Tappei has just released chapter 26 of arc 7. This video will be a summary of that chapter. I highly recommend you check out my chapter 25 summary, which is also on my channel. Anyways, let's begin. The chapter starts with Subaru commenting on the tense situation. Unfortunately, the tense situation could not be broken by Subaru's dumb voice. However, a new figure appeared at the side of the room by the staircase, holding a bow and arrow. This person was Tarita. Since Tarita was ordered by Abel and Mizelda to leave the city hall prior, she obviously just returned now. Of course, looking at the city hall from afar wouldn't really give her an idea of what was happening inside. However, if Tarita was to look across the room currently, the only person that could be behind the attack was Priscilla. Tarita tells Priscilla to not move, but Priscilla moves towards Tarita regardless. However, she is stopped when Abel calls out to her. Abel states that Tarita has some use and tells Tarita to stand down and that Priscilla isn't an enemy. Tarita is however not convinced and assures that Priscilla is dangerous. However, Abel redirects her attention to Mizelda, who is being healed by Rem. Tarita then ran over to Mizelda and took her hand whilst calling out to her. Once again, there was no one keeping Priscilla in check now that Tarita went to Mizelda. Now the standoff between Priscilla and Abel restarted. However, before that, Priscilla ordered Subaru to help rescue Al and to not make noise whilst doing it. Priscilla also mentioned that nothing bad will happen to Abel. Subaru didn't know if he should trust Priscilla, but knowing Priscilla's attitude, she wouldn't reverse her statement. As Subaru was confused with what was going on, he moved ahead with his task. After all, Rem was healing Mizelda, so he would do what he had to do. However, he was bombarded with many questions in his head, such as Priscilla's relationship to Abel, the Shadrakian people, and how to handle the city of Guaral. We see that rescuing Al was actually really difficult, considering he only had one arm. However, after a bit of a struggle, Al was able to be retrieved and Subaru helped him up. Al sat on the floor and Subaru turned to Medium, who we see was helping Subaru and helping Al as well. However, Medium said that it was no problem and apologized for her lack of help during the fight versus Arakiya. However, Subaru said it wasn't an issue, because when Arakiya unleashed her tornado attack, Medium protected Flop, Lewis, and Utakata, and in the process she hit her head and was unable to battle. Medium understands, but since she's supposed to be a bodyguard, she was obviously not useful. Medium states she won't be so pathetic next time. With Al saved, Medium went off to help the injured Shadrakians and Imperial soldiers. Subaru thought that the O'Connell siblings deserved way more praise than they were actually getting and wonders if he will ever be able to repay the favour to them. Al makes a comment that Medium was big and cute and Subaru agrees. However, Subaru starts getting at Al and Al tells Subaru to not glare or else he will ruin the makeup on his face. Subaru states that the real Natsumi Schwartz looks way prettier and he was rushed. Al laughs at this and notes Subaru's pseudonym. Subaru then asks Al why he's in the Empire and Al doesn't answer, but Subaru states that it was a big help with their presence but still wants to know why Priscilla and Al are there. To Subaru, it wasn't just being in the Empire, it was a weird intervention that occurred, how Priscilla and Al just showed up. However, Al stated that he didn't care about why he or Priscilla came to the Empire. However, getting back to somewhere safe like Lagunica is something that Subaru is most likely looking for. Subaru asked Al if he knew a safe way to get back to Lagunica, but Al said he didn't, and that entering the country is easier than leaving the country. Subaru was getting frustrated, but then asked why that was. However, Al states that there are people that maybe shouldn't be allowed to escape. With this, Subaru realizes that Al most likely knows the identity of Abel, and is able to realize that the border security is actually to prevent Abel from escaping the country. Subaru asks Ao if he has a lot of information, but Ao states he should stop talking or else the princess would get mad. However, Ao was unsure if Priscilla would tell Subaru the details. The scene changes and we see a round table taking place, with Ao asking Priscilla how the discussion and questioning is going. The upper part of the building was destroyed, but the lower floor and foundation was intact, meaning the city hall was still a city hall and had its functions. We see Priscilla and Abel sitting opposite each other, alongside the people of Shadrach, Kuna, and Dika Ottoman. Kuna asks if Subaru is okay, however Subaru comments on Kuna's condition, but Kuna explains that Holly defended her, however she wants to leave as she isn't really used to this situation. Subaru reflects on his position in the group. We see that Kuna is helping with the organization. However, Subaru was tasked with taking over the city of Guaral without killing anyone. However, with Arakiya and Priscilla's entrance, Subaru's plan wasn't the best. Dika asked if Subaru was in trouble, and if he wanted he could sit next to him. Subaru reiterated that he was actually a guy, however Dika wasn't put off by it, and Subaru understood why he was known as the Womanizer. However, Womanizer was in a positive manner rather than a derogatory meaning. Subaru thanked him for protecting him when Arakiya unleashed the initial tornado attack, and Dika said that he might not be able to do it again in the future as he's a coward. We see that the Shadrachian people cannot take on the Empire. When Priscilla is questioned on her forces, she states that she has a drunken swordsman, an iron helmet, and an adorable boy. Of course, this is referring to Heinkel, Ao, and Schult. Whilst the discussion continues, Subaru asks Priscilla about her arrival in the Empire. Priscilla states that Subaru doesn't really deserve a reward for pulling up Ao. However, Subaru doesn't back down, and Priscilla states that she is here to talk to Abel. Subaru was confused. How did Priscilla know where Abel was? And Priscilla explains that there are ways for the Emperor to travel around if something goes wrong, and the notable thing that happens is the Emperor will go to the graveyard of Emperors. Priscilla and Abel get into a slinging match again, but Al calms them down before it escalates any further. Al reveals that Priscilla rushed to Guaral to help Abel, and Priscilla smacked Al with her fan, confirming Al's statement. This of course was shocking, as it seems that Priscilla is actually on Abel's side. Subaru was struggling to believe the situation and was looking at Priscilla, to which she asked if he wanted his eyes to be gouged out. Despite everything, Ao tells Subaru to just go along with it since Abel accepted Priscilla's explanation and they were the smart people. Subaru asked Ao if it was okay, and Ao said it didn't really matter if it was right or wrong, and at the end of the day, him and Priscilla would win the royal selection. Subaru actually couldn't believe what he was hearing. Subaru knew about how powerless he and Ao was. I mean, he got it hammered into him many times, so hearing Ao's statement that him and Priscilla would win shocked Subaru. The discussion shifted to the 9 divine generals and how they could be defeated. People like Julius, Marcos, Roswell, Garfiel, Wilhelm, and Reinhard would be an all-star lineup to defeat the 9 divine generals. The discussion shifts to someone that can match Reinhardt's strength, Cecilus, who is the strongest in Wallachia, comparable to Halibel and the Mad Prince. This is confirmed by Abel and Dika, and they wouldn't joke, so that means Cecilus is on Reinhardt's level. Subaru is shocked, but Al mentions that he was able to help defeat Arakiya, who was the number 2 divine general. Subaru realizes that Ao is right. They essentially took over the city with minimal casualties. They have Rem who can heal, and maybe now have Priscilla and Aldebaran as added reinforcements. Also, since they caught Arakiya, they could get information from her, and Ao confirms that information is like gold, so Subaru and Ao are in agreement. However, Kuna is against it. Since Arakiya is powerful, she will escape if there's any openings, and it's best to actually just kill her. Subaru disagrees, but Kuna glares at Subaru. After all, Arakiya butchered Mazelda. Even if Rem healed her, it didn't change the fact that Arakiya slapped around Mazzelda. Subaru looked at Priscilla, but Priscilla stated that she was the one who cut Arakiya's back, and if she dies, that's her fate. Subaru states that if you die, you don't get your life back, but Priscilla asks why Subaru is preaching the value of life to her, and is implying that Priscilla is misjudging the value of life of other people. Subaru states that she isn't all-powerful, and she can make mistakes. At that second, the entire room became tense, and Kuna and Dika gasped. Subaru realized he could die, but Subaru repeated his statement. Subaru did wait to die, but it never came. Priscilla tells Kuna to find a use for Arakiya before killing her, and Kuna tells Priscilla that she's an outsider. And the tension then goes to increase again, but Owl calms down everyone before proclaiming that the erotic girl Arakiya gets to live. However, someone barged through the door, and that was actually Holly, stating that the 9 Divine General that was being held was gone, so Arakiya escaped. With that is the end of the chapter. Well, here's my sort of unedited opinion, so if you want to listen to my thoughts, this is for you. If I'm honest, I kind of expected Arakiya to escape. I'm actually making a video called The Owl is Subaru Theory Debunked, where I go over the evidence that people are saying that Owl cannot be Subaru because of new information, but I think this just confirms my suspicion that Owl and Subaru are the same person, and Arakiya is actually the key behind it. I'll be making a video about it shortly, so I'm not going to go into it here. But the video was interesting. I mean, the chapter, Priscilla is on Abel's side, and it looks like we're going to get Heinkel and Schultz to jump in soon. I'm still not sure how Garfiel and Roswell are going to get into the fight, so I'm looking forward to that. And even though, like, people are saying Cecilis is on the level of Reinhard, like, again, I don't believe it. Reinhard will smack Cecilis around the corner. You know, it will be no contest. I don't believe there will be any sort of comparison between them. Honestly, it was a pretty tame chapter. Nothing really happened. Al got saved. Arakiya escaped. That's pretty much it. But thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.